right? Being vulnerable, talking about our emotions, talking about when we lose our shit, talking about when we are so sad to the point that we just can't even find a way out.
I feel this thing, or I'm in this place. I'm experiencing this emotion. Why am I experiencing this emotion? I shouldn't be experiencing this emotion. What do I need to do to get out of this emotion? And and it just causes, it intensifies the spiral.
You made me mad. They used to do it all the time. You did this to me, right? So there's this very much like I'm the victim, even though they don't sound like they're a victim, but they're basically I'm the villain, right?
And recognizing that things happen, right? Things happen, and everything that happens is not about me. So welcome to our conversation today.
Okay, hi folks. It's a big sigh there. Today's video is around emotions, and I'm going to share hopefully a brief story, Lina, so please cut me off as as we start. We're going to talk about managing emotions. The rough title is Mind, Body, and Soul. And I say that because when it comes to emotions in general, at least from my understanding and my own learning, oftentimes in the West, the learning has come from what's happening in our minds.
Yeah.
And that's not bad or wrong. It's just, it is we all function with a brain, and that's where the emotions are coming from, ultimately, at least a part of the brain. And I was triggered this weekend for two reasons. One, I was triggered. It was Mother's Day. I lost my mother-in-law last year, and my husband and I we're always going through stuff, but he wasn't really being great with me, and I wasn't feeling great emotionally. I was actually emotionally drained. So I'm sitting at the DMV waiting to get my driver's license renewed, and a girlfriend of mine sends a reel on Instagram from Mel Robbins, who's on the Oprah Winfrey podcast or show or something. I'm not sure what the show was. And Mel Robbins is on there because she's got a new book or something, and she's talking about how she doesn't want people to say that they have anxiety. She wants them to say that they feel it. And I went off when I saw the video, only because I actually have an anxiety disorder. I take pills for it. And my definition of anxiety falls under one of the core emotions. So to me, anxiety is an actual emotion. And where I feel it often is in my throat and in my chest. So when I'm feeling nervous or, that kind of, I feel butterflies sometimes up here, my throat sort of chokes up. So I feel anxiety, but I also have it as an actual disorder and as an emotion. Now, my girlfriend sent me the video because she knows I have an anxiety disorder. And so there was something in that video that she felt like I might benefit from. And the benefit was being able to actually now have this conversation with you folks and with you, Lina, is what I'm going to take from it. And it's because working through emotions when it comes to just being human in any role that we have is already difficult. Working through emotions in the workplace, regardless of your title, regardless of the role that you have, is frigging hard. And I will say that it's difficult because we're programmed and we've trained ourselves and we've educated ourselves to get a certain job done or to be in a certain career. So for myself, I learned and got educated in the business field of HR. To be very blunt, I did not learn about my emotions or how to work through them until I was in my 40s. And I'm almost now in my early 50s. So I feel like this is a timely conversation for anyone in our community in We Cypher, because I think we all need a little bit more homework and support when it comes to figuring out our emotions and how we're working through them. I want to do a call out to Dr. Jackson. It's a video that I just saw recently. And she's speaking to I think it's a law conference, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but she's one of the last speakers in a series, what it sounds like, that was done on YouTube. And the video I think the whole week was around wellness. And so Dr. Jackson is speaking about emotional wellness. And the grace and calm and almost sort of appreciation that she brings to the talk was already so welcoming for me as I was watching it. And it was because, again, I don't want to dwell on Mel Robbins, but there was this like, I'm not the expert. Here's what I've learned, and here's what I'm imparting that might be of use to you. And this is a woman who I believe has a law background, so is educated in the law, has a doctorate, and I think is teaching students in law. So even that sort of grace and calmness that she brought to like, here's some things that I've learned when it comes to regulating my own emotions. Here's some things that you folks might want to consider, is where I just felt like, and she ends, let me just say this, she ends with talking about the law profession and saying how it can feel lonely sometimes. And that made me think of you, Lina, in some of our conversations where you've said being an ED or CEO in a not-for-profit, and based on how you identify, adds further complexity, and it can feel very lonely. I have heard that from clients of mine that are very similar to you, Lina, executive directors for not-for-profits, and they themselves also feel like they're on their own. And so when Dr. Jackson said that you're not alone as a lawyer, and that it can be hard, and that, you know, we get shit on some, she didn't say that, but, you know, this sort of like, you feel like you're on your own because you're getting shit on because you're a lawyer. And she's like, this is about healing through community. And I thought, wow, like, yeah, that's just it, right? Like, at the end of the day, how can we talk about these kinds of very difficult things, right? Being vulnerable, talking about our emotions, talking about when we lose our shit, talking about when we are so sad to the point that we just can't even find a way out. How do we do that and know that we're not alone? And how can we do it to possibly support each other? Starting with supporting yourself. And that's, again, Dr. Jackson does a beautiful job in terms of just describing things that she's done for herself as she works through her own emotions. We are We Cypher, folks. Lina and I have created and are looking to build a community where, whether you are a seasoned executive suffering from burnout or trying to run a mission-centered business, you might be a new not-for-profit leader trying to tighten up your organization's governance, this community is for you. I am Jodi, and this is Lina. Lina is an executive director, a CEO with a not-for-profit in the US. I'm an HR professional, and we are using this space and sharing our experiences through these videos to help create an iterative, generative space where we can support each other and support, hopefully, folks like you from marginalized identities to learn and grow together. We believe that you are as worthy and deserving as the communities that you serve. And so welcome to today's conversation about emotions. I've kind of done a lot already, Lina, in terms of talking about emotions, emotional wellness, if you want to call it that. I'm happy to dig in a little bit further, but maybe I'll stop and just sort of see where you might be at in terms of opening up the conversation when it comes to emotions.
Yeah. I mean, this is a good one, you know, and it's it's complicated. You know, you know, the thing that kind of immediately came to my mind was an experience that I had many years ago when I lived in Philadelphia. I'll also say that I'm a person who has lived with depression, anxiety, you know, and have been better or worse at managing these things kind of throughout my life, and am in a better stage right now, right? And part of why I feel like I'm in a better stage, I'm going to kind of loop into right through this story. But anyway, so I was in Philly. I'm not good with time.
That's all right. That counts.
I don't know, man. I was in my 30s. I don't know.
All right,
early
that's
30s,
good.
I
That
think.
works.
And I would I ended up getting introduced to this Catholic nun, right? And she became kind of like this mentor, like this kind of spiritual, mentor for me in these interesting ways. I'm not Catholic, I'm not particularly religious, but she was just, man, like she was just one of those people. She's one of those people. Her name was Sister Maria, old white woman, like it's a Catholic nun, but she's those activist, feminist Catholic nuns, right? Because Catholics are interesting, right? Like they can be, Catholics are interesting, but she was one of those, like I said, activist, feminist. She was fantastic. And so I went to go see her one day. She was at a place called Cranaleith Spiritual Center. So I drove up there to go see her. I was having a hard time. And I was talking to her, about what I was going through. And I'm doing the thing that we often do and are taught to do when we're dealing with, difficult emotions. I was talking about something that happened. I was talking about how I was trying to like get the lesson from it or something like that. And she was like, you know what? Sometimes things are just fucked up. And that's just what it is. Right now. And I was like, it was like a revelation, right? Like, just like, look, sometimes things are just messed up and you just need to feel messed up. And that's okay.
It's okay. Yeah.
That was the first time anyone had ever said anything like that to me. And it was so freeing. Right. And then we kind of got to this whole conversation. And as I started kind of, digging deeper and looking into some other folks, like, there are lots of tenets of Buddhism that I really liked and I really turned to and were helpful for me in terms of moving through depression. But, one of the things that, I kind of started to learn, right, and in that conversation with her and what she shared with me was that a lot of times, especially with kind of depressive loops, or anxiety loops, that a good piece of, the loop or the spiral is the guilt that you feel about being depressed or feeling bad or feeling anxious, right? So it's like, I feel this thing, or, I'm in this place, I'm experiencing this emotion. Why am I experiencing this emotion? I shouldn't be experiencing this emotion. What do I need to do to get out of this emotion? And, and it just intensifies the spiral. And what she did for me in that moment, and she gave me this powerful tool, she interrupted by saying, yeah, it's fucked up. You feel fucked up. Okay. That's fine. Be in that.
Yeah.
There's no judgment. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to figure anything out. You don't have to, like, you can just be feeling crappy, and that's okay. Right. And that was, that was something that I lean on to this day that helps me resist that spiral.
Yeah.
It's just being like, when I catch myself being like, why am I feeling bad? I shouldn't be feeling bad. It's like, you know what, girl? You're just feeling bad. Just feel it.
Just feel
if
it.
I got to just cry, or if I just got whatever, just do it and let it. And often what happens is I work through it, and I have it and I experience it and I'm in it. And it, sometimes it may be a couple minutes, sometimes it may be a day, sometimes whatever it is. And then I move through it and it's okay.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's okay.
And so, and so I share that, because I feel like sometimes, and even thinking about kind of, I think a part of what triggered you and a part of what upsets you about whoever this woman is, I don't know who she is that you said, but I feel like sometimes there is this tendency that we have to diminish the reality of these difficult emotions and difficult experiences because we just got to move on, right? Like there's always this kind of, everybody's rushing to get to, or get, to be positive and to feel better. And if you just, like there's some magic wand, or if you just do this special little trick, and it's just like, but why? Why can't I feel bad? right? Like, why can't I have my moment? And you know who else wrote a really amazing book about this? I love Barbara Einrich. I don't
Okay,
know if
I've
you know
never
her.
heard.
She's a
No.
journalist. And she's written some really good stuff, but she wrote a book. She was diagnosed with cancer. So, this was from years ago. And she wrote this whole book about the toxicity of the positivity movement, especially as it relates to cancer survivors, right? And she was just
Mm.
talking about this way in which people were always trying to force her to feel better, right? Or like
Oh.
this, like she didn't get to just feel shitty because she had cancer. Like she didn't get to mourn. Everybody's always trying to, oh, well, here's the positive side of cancer. And she's like, oh, I don't want to do that right now. I
Yeah.
don't want to have
Yeah.
to find the fucking sunny side right now. I just want to
Yeah.
feel shitty about this terrible thing that's going on in my life that I have to figure out how to navigate. And that's just where I am right now. And I
And that's
don't
where I
want any
am.
fucking body, but that's the thing, right? Like it's always, we're all, but a part of that though, I think a part of that is very much connected to what we're often talking about, right? This kind of, the unyielding press of capitalism and the
Mm-hmm.
need to always be up, to always be at our best, because it's about performativity. It's about
Yes.
production. It's about performance, right?
Yeah.
And so you got to be
Absolutely.
ready to perform, right? You got to be ready to put on that smile, take the Tylenol, take the drugs to numb the pain so that you
Yep.
can just keep on pressing on and producing. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's the root of it. Right.
That is.
But sometimes what you
Yes.
need to do is sit the hell down.
Yep.
And just sit there.
Yep. Yeah. Yes. 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 Yes to all of it. The aha, I guess aha moment isn't the right word, but that, when it kind of floored you, when the Catholic nun said that, like, yeah, and I had something similar when I was feeling an emotion of sort of embarrassment and shame. And it was the first time I was involved in defending a recruitment process. So in the space that I was in, you could file a formal complaint and then you had to defend what happened. And so I don't know why I was feeling like I did it wrong. I didn't do well. And my manager at the time said, okay, so you're not perfect. And it was almost like, oh, like, so it sort of reminds me of what you said as well, is that like, it's a little bit deeper. It's not deeper. There's a nuanced thing that connects to the emotion from what she said for me, because there was this identity piece that went with it. Like, it's almost like, it's like you said, that performative piece, like I'm supposed to be perfect, whatever that means. I was supposed to do this. I was supposed to do that. And I didn't feel like I did. And so now I was feeling like shit. And her permission, like almost like the awakening of like, yeah, so you're not perfect and here's how it went. And you figure it out. And I just love that she said that to me, and so to connecting it to your story, when we're not feeling great. So, and even Dr. Jackson, she says, I forget the name she said, but it's an acronym that she talked about. And she said it's an acronym called PACE. And she says she uses it when she's giving lectures to students. And the first thing is pausing before you do something. And the second one is acknowledge. And that's kind of like what I feel like both my manager and this Catholic nun said, like, okay, so acknowledge how you're feeling and be okay with that. You had started the story by saying something like, what all of us do. And I wonder if part of it was masking, like, I'm okay and I'm fine, I'm going to perform and it's not that bad. And because like you said, we don't want to feel the way that we're feeling, especially if we're not feeling like totally happy. It doesn't feel good to feel like shit. It doesn't feel good to be afraid. It doesn't feel good to have anxiety and to feel nervous always in your body. Like, that doesn't feel good. So I think this idea that you've shared around being okay when you're not feeling good letting yourself, like you said, the loop, let yourself be in. If the loop looks like bottom, not spiral, but looks like bottoms because you're not feeling great. Okay, let yourself do that. What I have found being powerful is, okay, well, how do I get myself out? Because that's the piece that I feel like a lot of us do struggle with, is that what if I'm just feeling afraid all the time, which my anxiety often results in me actually being afraid a lot of the time. So both emotions don't serve each other well. They actually kind of reinforce me feeling like crap a lot of the time. And so accessing the emotions like joy, happiness, call it whatever you want, that's where I have struggled over the years, right? Not to mention then, like you said, what systems or expectations or ways of being that we think we're supposed to be. So how we've attached performance to identity, what that can do, like, and in terms
I just want to real quick, Jodi, like what you just said, the ways that we attach performance to identity. I just want to say that again, because I think that's really powerful. I think it's a really powerful idea. I didn't want to kind of skip over. I think that's really powerful.
And it's, as in the beginning of this video, I said, this weekend was kind of harsh, and I'm a mom, which I've shared with folks already. And even as you reinforced it, like I'm starting to get teary-eyed, because it's like, it's hard, man. It's hard when you feel like, and I do identify as a mom. I am a mom, but like, it's just, and then when things aren't happening the way that you think they're supposed to happen, or someone else that you love and you care about, and it could be employees as well, they're going through pain, and you identify as the manager who's supposed to have all your shit together. Like, it's not easy, right? In terms of that identity piece, like you said, and performing. So I appreciate you wanting to pause on that. It actually makes me think about what we talked about when we were prepping for this video. The ideas around, especially for those of us that are in work environments where you're maybe like me, you're an HR person, or you're meant to be a subject matter expert in helping people feel human at work, or they're individuals like yourself that are leading and running a team. How you work through your own emotions so that you can help others work through theirs is not easy. And I have had clients who are sad but are frustrated because they got two employees that are like at each other's throats, and they've got the anger and this, and like trying to figure that shit out through like a grievance process or through a conflict resolution process. It's not easy. It's not easy. I'm curious about where do you want to go with the conversation? Do you want to go with how you maybe have had those situations and what you've done as a CEO, or do we want to go with what we've done as individual humans when we're not feeling great?
Well, I mean, they're connected, right? Because some of it is just about having a particular, I think, toolkit, right? Or a particular set of practices or whatever. Because I want to go back a little bit to what you were talking about, that idea of getting out of it, right? Like of if you hit bottom and getting out of that hitting the bottom, and I think it's a part of it is, some of what we already talked about, at least from my experience, right? Like one of the things I experienced was, one, as I said, I have found that I am less likely to hit like serious bottom when I do the acknowledgement piece, right? And when I allow myself to simply feel what it is that I need to feel, right? And then also, I think it's easier in some ways to identify what you need when you are willing to simply acknowledge and be where you are in a moment, rather than the judgment, right? Because I really think that the judgment, I think that internal judgment is what makes it really difficult to get out of it.
Very difficult, yeah.
Because
absolutely.
it's only it's adding to it, right? And it's so it's like you got the thing itself, but then it's like you're piling on, right? Like it's almost like you're kicking yourself when you're down. is what's really happening.
And why? Like,
Yeah.
everyone, we have the right to have an emotion, and we have the right to feel it. Like,
Hold on one second.
Yeah.
Hold on one second. I gotta open the door. Patricia, you're gonna have to.
Yeah. Patricia, you're gonna have to cut this out.
Okay, I'll just let you know though. So I wanna. Sorry about that.
No worries at all. No worries at all. I forgot what we were saying.
I don't know. Oh, we were talking about
Oh, the judgment. Like, yeah, like,
yes.
I have another story. Like, so very quickly, well, when as a mom, trying to figure out my kids, and my daughter's 5 years old, and there's a gentleman, Dan Siegel, who's written quite a few books. I'm not sure exactly his academic background. He might be like a neuroscientist or something like that, but he wrote a book called The Whole Brain Child. And he also sort of trademarked or came up with this idea of understanding the brain through looking at your hand. And I loved it. Like, it really worked for me. And so my daughter, I remember she's upset about something or whatever. And she says, and again, she's 5. So this is 9 years ago. And she's like, "You're not the boss of me." And I, almost lost it when she said that. Cause I'm like, I am the boss of you. I gave birth to you, kid. Like, what the hell? Look what my body looks like. I am the boss of you. But then I stopped myself and I thought, you know what? I'm going to think about what I read, and I'm like, you know what, Talene, you're right. I'm not the boss of you. You have the right to feel whatever it is you're feeling. And I want you to, I didn't say it exactly because she's 5 years old, but my point was, feel what you're going to feel. And to your point, Lina, don't judge it. You're allowed. Feel it. Where I feel like not necessarily judging, but accountability comes into play is what you choose to do with that.
Yes. Absolutely.
That choice piece, right? And I think that even before the choice piece, you said something very profound. Once you've acknowledged without judgment, have you figured out what you need? Right? Because even I think the need piece is even before the choice is made, right? Because then the need piece might be a couple of choices that you're going to make, right? But if you don't center yourself first, name that you're pissed about something, whatever it is, figure out, okay, if I'm mad, like you said it so brilliantly, there must be a need. At least this is the way I see it. There's a need of mine that has not been met. That's why that emotions come up. And if the emotion is anger, at least from what I've learned, is that there's a boundary that's been crossed. So there's a message in that emotion. So now I've decided, okay, there's a boundary that's been crossed. I need boundaries. They help me. This boundary's been crossed of mine. What am I going to do? What's my play here? And I think giving ourselves that grace and that time, which I know doesn't always happen because we think quickly, right? We think and feel and do everything very quick. But that pause without judgment, like you said, and acknowledging and sitting and just asking, what do I need right now? I mean, if we can't give that to ourselves, no one else is going to give us that.
Yeah. And so I think that's the thing too, right? So I feel like, doing that kind of work, with yourself, then I think helps you when you then are having to manage others through whatever it is that's going on. And I'm not saying that it's, once again, I don't believe in magical solutions or the, two-step, I don't know. I don't believe in all that stuff. Like, I don't think there's any special magic potion, or if you follow these steps, things will always work out great. I don't believe in those kinds of things. And it's usually messy, right? Like, anytime you're dealing with, I mean, our own emotions are bad enough. And then you got to deal with other people's emotions. Like, that's a whole nother thing, right? You have no control over that. Right. And so for one, I think acknowledging that you have no control and no responsibility for other people's emotions.
Yes.
Right. You just don't. Right. Like, you can do your best, you can do your best to mediate, mitigate, try to identify what stress points might be, try to put mechanisms. You can do all that stuff. But at the end of the day, other people's feelings and emotions are their business, and they control them,
Yeah.
and they're responsible for them.
And
Right.
that's
And
the
so,
key. That's the
right.
key, sorry, is for them to, I hope they understand, I hope they get to a place where they own that and they get that. Because again, as a mom with your kids, and I've done it when I was younger too, and I might have even done it nowadays, but I can't remember. But my kids used to, you made me mad. They used to do it all the time. You did this to me, right? So there's this very much like I'm the victim, even though they don't sound like they're a victim, but they're basically, I'm the villain, right? I made them feel this way. And I'm like, did I really? Or is the emotion just the emotion? Feel it, but don't say that I did it to you, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it could be possible where, I'm not saying, folks, we don't piss each other off and like this and that, right? I guess where I'm going with this is your brilliant comment, Lina, around like, your emotions are your business.
Absolutely.
That we shouldn't discount that something that I might say or that I do may very
has
well
an impact.
Yeah, it's going to have an impact, right?
Yeah,
that's true. But we put I think managers and individuals like yourself, Lina, I think some folks are putting so much pressure on themselves. And maybe their own organizations are putting the pressure on them to be like, well, you need to fix this. And it's not easy, right? But if you at least allow and recognize that their emotions are their emotions, and they're going to own them, and they're going to try, they need to figure that out. And hopefully that provides less stress to individuals like yourself. You know what I mean? Like you said, you have the tools available. You could offer mediation. You could put them through conflict resolution, which is like a kind of mediation would be considered like a conflict resolution kind of thing. Send them on courses or whatever. But at the end of the day, they got to own and figure it out on their own.
Absolutely. And I mean, and that's the thing too. And I think that for me, like I found that that's also helped me heal some things, right? Because the truth is, yes, the truth is that simply, we often exist in systems of harm, et cetera, et cetera. That's true, right? Like I'm not denying that. Like I'm absolutely not one of those people who's like, who tries, to be like, how do I say this? Like, something's only harmful if you let it be kind of shit. That's BS.
No.
Some shit's just harmful, right? Like if somebody spits in my face, right? Like that's just harmful, right? Like that's not, I interpreted and if I just interpreted the spit in my face as somebody trying to moisturize me, then like some ridiculous shit like that. But I don't do those kinds of things. I don't play those kinds of games. However, one of the things that I have found helpful for me, even in terms of healing some things, from my family life and all that stuff is being able to take a certain degree of ownership, right? And recognizing that things happen, right? Things happen, and everything that happens is not about me, right? Like, so everything because that's the thing I think that happens too sometimes is the personalization, right? Like somebody does something that we perceive as being shitty and we make it about us, and it may or may not be. Sometimes it's not about me at all. Sometimes it's about some other control drama this person has, some other situation they like, I know nothing about, whatever, right? Yeah. And so it's like I release that. It's not about me, right? Because it's not about me. I'm not owning that.
I love that. When you say ownership, first and foremost, and then like you said, this awareness, like, it's not about me. Don't personalize it. I read the 4 Agreements by, I think he's a Spanish gentleman that wrote it, but he literally, one of the agreements is don't take shit personally. And the word that comes to mind is that awareness, for me anyways. And when I think about awareness, the sort of Western space that we're in talks about emotional intelligence, and it talks about awareness. But I love what you just said, because it's not just that ownership, which is self-awareness that's happening. It's you recognizing at least what might be going on for someone else. That you're aware that the whole world does not revolve around you. So don't take it personally. Who knows what's going on with that person? Who knows what's happening for that person? So that awareness, I think, is like, you just blew my mind. You just blew my mind with what you just said. I think you did really. Because yeah, like the way that, yeah, you almost did a 180 on when the pundits that are out there that sort of have coined emotional intelligence, that talk about self-awareness and awareness. They also then do this idea about social awareness. But sometimes I feel like it's still you and the world, not in a bad way, but they're
Right.
like, you know, talking about kind of, here's, you know, are you self-aware? And then because you're self-aware and you've worked through your emotion, you'll be better socially aware. But the way you said it around ownership and don't take things personally, I think is almost feels stronger. It feels
Mm.
more meatier in terms of like, because who knows what's going on over there? Like,
You just don't
but
know.
at least, and even then, it still lands very strongly around ownership for you then. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're feeling this, but like, and like you said, there are situations where it's the systems we're in, the processes that we're in, the people that we are impacting us are doing it in such a way that I can't fake this shit. If I'm psychologically
Right.
unsafe, if I have been emotionally abused, yes, that did happen, right? But that ownership piece and then not taking things personally, I think is huge. It sounds very empowering.
And you know, and I think too, like there was something you said earlier, that you said Dr. Jackson was talking about, that I also wanted to point back to, because I think that's another kind of dimension to some of the criticism that you were offering of the first person, is that notion of kind of the role of community for kind of healing, right? Because that's another thing I think that goes that also annoys me sometimes with these kind of gurus, right? Like the kind of guru personality is the guru thing, right? Like I said, everybody's got the magical pill, if you, because it's always so kind of individual, right? Like
Yes.
I have this, you know, I have a mantra, or I do this, or I do that thing, right? But you know, the reality is a lot of times it it takes community, right? Like there are some ways in which certain degree of healing happens in community. It's not just about the mantra that I say to myself, or like I even like talking about, you know, Sister Maria, right? Like being in communion with her, right? Being in
Yes.
relationship with her was a really necessary part for me to acquire a particular kind of tool that I've used in my healing.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So
Well,
there are
I
some
think
ways
you're
in
bang
which
on.
community is critical, right? Like
It's
it's not
critical.
all just some individual effort where if I just think positively, or if I just say this mantra, or if I just listen to this or read this book or take these steps, blah, 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 everything will be all right. And then also, you know, like this also points me to that kind of that thing sometimes of like being at your best, whatever, right?
Mm,
Like, what does that even mean?
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what does
Yeah.
that really mean? And what is intended when we say that? And does that mean that I can't have bad days? I can't, be a person who's struggling with depression. I can't, unless I'm like this all the time, right? Like,
Yeah.
is being my best self always, does that mean that I can't have a complexity,
And
of
you can.
emotions and
Yeah.
experiences,
100%. No,
so
I
that's
mean,
something
and
I wonder
we
too.
know you can. And I love that
Right.
you said that, because again, Dr. Jackson talks about this where she says, let me be clear, and I'm paraphrasing, but like emotional wellness doesn't mean that you are always happy. She legit just said what
Exactly.
you just said. She's saying emotional wellness is knowing that there's going to be moments, like you said, a loop, right? Like there's going to be moments where you're feeling messy and dark and not great and all that. And it's just knowing that, and ensuring that you have figured out ways, like maybe some individual ones, maybe a mantra works, maybe meditation work, but also, at the end when she said that piece about community, it was like huge for me. It really was, because there's that, like you said, there's never really a two-step, here's the magic thing, that the speaker I was talking about before, like, I want you to say you feel anxiety. Well, just because I say that, that's not going to help. Like, that doesn't help me. Like, it might be one part of it, but that is not the magic pill that's going to solve everybody, or solve my own anxiety disorder that I have, right? Let alone that I just disagree with the way she's talking about it in general. But at least going back to your point where we're allowed to just feel, period, and And there might be times where individually you're figuring your own shit out, and that could include just feeling miserable. And then there's days where, you will do meditation or you will go for a walk. And then there's those days where you're like, I need to go talk to sister so-and-so, and like you said, when you were in that space, like even you and I being able to try to build what we're building together, it makes me, because you've talked about community from day one. And I'm so grateful for that, because I've had friends who've seen blogs and videos where they talked about needing your girlfriends and the time that you really need, the word wasn't community, but now as we're talking, that's what that meant, that it can heal your soul when you are with others and you're sharing and you're laughing and you're crying and you're doing it with others. It's one part of it. It's not the entire part of it, right? And to your point about, like, it's not like it's just 2 steps and it's all done. We're getting close to sort of our end, I think. Where are you at with closing thoughts? Maybe we'll end the video today with that idea.
Well, I think just to kind of bring it full circle, to, kind of into the workspace as well. And to your point often about, kind of what it means to show up as fully human. That means that we are also going to have emotions at work.
Yeah.
It's not, you can't necessarily turn yourself off at the door and become someone else. It's really just a matter of, I think from a kind of an organizational side of things, that's where, things like, PTO and, the way that you structure giving people time and space, all those things. As I said, my team is fully remote. So, if somebody needs to, sit and cry at their computer at their own house, that's already kind of a, but if, people who don't have that, but people who don't have that opportunity because they are actually in an office space, and, what do you do when you need to have a moment? I think that it's a part of that also is, really kind of trying to build a culture and create space and opportunity in the way that we develop our organizations that allows people to be emotional beings, right?
Yes.
And certainly
absolutely.
we have to do that with some accountability and ownership of our emotions. Like you can't be screaming on people. Like that's unacceptable. I don't care what kind of day you have.
100%.
You can't be screaming on people, right? Like you can't, like but that's a part of your culture, and that's a part of your policies and all those kinds of things, right?
Exactly.
Like you can't just be abusing people, but I think that there are some ways in which, this idea that everybody should always be kind of, it's just not realistic. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, like when you do that, it reminds me of like a horror movie where you see those dolls that are about to stab you.
Because it is horrible. It is horrible for us to even expect that people should just be like, and like I said, we frame it and all this positivity stuff and, whatever, but really it's just inhuman. It's absolutely inhuman.
It really is. It is. It's because
it's absolutely inhuman.
At the end of the day, it sounds it is inhuman, and it becomes very like surface level, right? Like I've had lots of organizations and folks I've worked with where they're, they keep sending us on this training, or they're talking about mental health or whatever. Meanwhile, I'm watching my colleague get reamed out by so-and-so, So
which is crazy.
Like you're bang on around. Like that role modeling piece is huge. That accountability of your own emotions and how you work through them is huge. If you think about human rights and law, there are like this idea about duty to refer and duty to inquire that comes up in workplaces where those two duties are something that a manager or an executive director is responsible for, with the idea about like, if you see, your staff member, employee not doing great, you do have a duty to inquire. Not being intrusive, but like, okay, hey,
are you okay?
Are you okay?
Do you need some support? Do you need to take some time?
Exactly.
You don't have to know people's business.
No, but there is that sort of legal space that individuals who have HR delegation or even financial delegation should be aware of. And then there's this thing called that duty to refer, and that is around refer them to EAP if you have it in your, if you have it, in your organization. So employee assistance programs, because managers are not therapists, right? And hopefully no one is expecting you to be, right? And so at least offering and reminding your staff that there are sources and resources out there for them to access is huge, right? So remembering sort of your own accountability as a manager or an executive director as it relates to the actual law piece can also be quite helpful. I feel like, in terms of figuring out how to help your employees.
Yeah, I mean, in the U.S., it can be a little more challenging because we don't have national health care, right?
Right.
And so and it depends, right? Like, it depends on kind of what resources your organization has, right? Like, we have an insurance carrier where folks can also get access to mental health services. I know that some companies, have, that's actually one of the things my husband does. He actually gets referrals from companies, for their employees, right? So some organizations, some companies, depending on your size and resource and all that kind of stuff, are able to do that.
Yes.
But it can be tricky, in a country where
and
in some healthcare systems, right, you're incredibly limited. Like, I used to hate, in California, a lot of it's Kaiser. And Kaiser is really bad about mental health services, right? Like, it's very difficult to get mental health support in the Kaiser system. So unfortunately, in the US in particular, it's very, very, it can be difficult, right? Like, even the notion of referring, right? Unless you, like I said, you have a healthcare provider, that you're set up with that actually provides that kind of support, or you have something in your organization where you can do those kind of referrals or something.
Yeah.
But it's not always the case, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, it's an excellent point. And again, I'm in Canada. And so when I say that, it's almost second nature, because the majority of organizations have benefits where EAP is included in that employee assistance program piece, or they've got benefits out, where you can go see a psychologist or, whatever, a counselor, whatever you might need. I think maybe one of the things that I wouldn't mind ending on as my last thought is that community piece. As you said, I'm thinking back to, again, managers, executive directors like yourself. I think there's a lot of expectations put on you to be the therapist, to be the coach, to be the mentor, to be the manager, to be the leader, to be all these things. And I remember being at a Holly Hawk session, actually, and it was around coaching. It was the idea about offering coaching to anyone that might want it. And there was a couple of women that were on a panel that were there to provide advice to this social venture. And I love what they said, where they said, well, our aunties provide, that's just what we do, like coaching, talking, like it's something within our culture anyways, that's very natural for us. So if anything, thinking about being a coach or going to get coaching seems not the worst idea, but it seems not natural, because we already have that within that idea of going within your family or going within your community. It already happens. And so I just think that we shouldn't discount that. Like, if there aren't formal things in place, you said it as well. You say it all the time. We heard it from Dr. Jackson. I think where you can find 1, 2, 3 people that you can just shoot the shit about, talk about where you're at, what's going on, or whatever. I mean, that sometimes can do wonders.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Folks, we really do hope you enjoyed our video today. If you liked it and you have any comments or thoughts, please do like it, subscribe to our channel. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the video, tips, ideas around emotional wellness. All views are welcome. And that's kind of all I'm going to say on that.
Yeah,
all right.
It was great. Thank you. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Till next time.